Have you ever stopped to think that much of your suffering doesn't come from what happens, but from how you react? The shocking truth is that most people spend years of their lives trapped by toxic thoughts, anxieties, and others' judgments. And no one teaches how to break free from this cycle. But what if I told you there's an ancient philosophy, tested by emperors and wise men, capable of shielding your mind from pain, frustration, and uncertainty? Yes, you read that right. You can train your mind to remain calm, resilient, and disciplined, even when everything around you seems to be falling apart. Stoicism isn't just theory or old books. It's a practical guide for living better, handling crises, and turning adversities into growth opportunities. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus faced challenges you can hardly imagine. Wars, intrigues, losses, and yet they found peace and self-mastery. Now you can apply these same lessons in your daily life without needing to be a philosopher or giving up what you love. Over the next few minutes, you'll discover 10 Stoic attitudes that can completely change the way you think, feel, and act. Some may seem counterintuitive or even uncomfortable, but that's exactly where the magic lies. By practicing them, you develop mental discipline, emotional control, and a mind shielded against any suffering. Get ready to challenge everything you believe about pain, happiness, and success, and learn Stoic lessons that truly transform lives. And the best part, these principles are applicable today, right now, without fluff, fancy techniques, or magic formulas. You'll leave this video with practical tools to face crises, eliminate anxiety, and start living with more virtue, self-mastery, and serenity. If you're ready for this, let's begin the journey and uncover how Stoicism can shield your mind once and for all. The first attitude is to accept what you cannot control. There's a Stoic wisdom that has endured for centuries and still feels more relevant than ever. Accept what you cannot control. It sounds simple, but few truly live this way. Most people get lost trying to dominate the uncontrollable, other people's behavior, circumstances, time, destiny. Marcus Aurelius, in his Stoic philosophy, already said that the mind finds serenity when it stops fighting the inevitable. This idea, which is the foundation of Stoicism and all practical philosophy, liberates those who understand it. It's like letting go of the weight of 1,000 expectations from your shoulders and finally breathing. Imagine someone stuck in traffic, yelling at the cars. Does it change anything? Of course not. But it does change the mood, health, and mental clarity of the one who allows themselves to be dominated by it. Acceptance here is true self-mastery. When Epictetus spoke of freedom, he wasn't referring to traveling the world or having wealth. He was talking about inner freedom, the kind that comes when you understand that the only thing under your control is your own mind. This vision is the essence of emotional control and mental discipline. Everything beyond that belongs to luck, chance, destiny. Fighting it is useless. Stoic philosophy teaches that trying to control what is out of reach is a waste of vital energy. Seneca, with his unshakable serenity, said, "Most of life is lost waiting for the future and regretting the past." Accepting the present without resisting what cannot be changed is the first step for anyone seeking to live better. But what does it mean in practice to accept the uncontrollable? It doesn't mean being passive or resigning to everything. It's acting with Stoic wisdom, doing your best with what you have, without torturing yourself over what is not up to you. Think of someone losing a job. Panic is natural, but useless. What matters is looking at what can be done, updating the resume, learning a new skill, seeking opportunities. That's the difference between suffering and growth. Stoicism in practice is this: transforming what would be pain into learning. When you understand that the world should not adjust to our will, but we must adjust to the world, a serenity arises that nothing can shake. Accepting the uncontrollable is, in a way, an exercise in humility. It's admitting that you are not the master of the universe. No matter how much mental discipline and self-mastery you have, there are much greater forces at play, and that's okay. This understanding is liberating. It was like letting go of the strings of a puppet you've been trying to control with tired hands. Letting life flow is an act of courage, not weakness. Stoic thoughts teach that resisting the inevitable is the root of human suffering, and the cure is simple, though rare: acceptance. Perhaps the secret of modern Stoicism lies precisely in applying this acceptance to small things. Accept a delayed flight. Accept that not everyone will understand your choices. Accept that the past won't return, and the future doesn't depend solely on you. This doesn't mean giving up on plans, but understanding that the outcome will never be 100% predictable. Self-mastery lies in doing the best you can while keeping your heart calm, no matter the outcome. This serenity is what distinguishes a wise Stoic from someone dominated by circumstances. After all, he who masters himself doesn't need to master anyone else. Marcus Aurelius used to write to himself, reminding that the world does not bow to human will. He said, "The art of living resembles a struggle more than a dance." Accepting what you cannot control is part of this silent struggle. It's a daily training in resilience and virtue. It's waking up in the morning and saying, "Today, whatever happens, I will remain steadfast." This kind of Stoic thinking builds true inner power. Not the power to change the world, but the power not to be destroyed by it. In an increasingly chaotic world, accepting the uncontrollable is a revolutionary act. It goes against collective anxiety, haste, and constant comparison. It's understanding that life doesn't need to be perfect to be good. That serenity doesn't come when everything goes right, but when you learn to deal with what goes wrong. This is how Stoicism becomes a practical philosophy, not a set of pretty quotes, but a real way to live better, with more balance and less suffering. And if there's a path to begin the journey of Stoic wisdom, it's this: stop fighting the wind and learn to adjust the sails. The world will continue to be unpredictable, people will remain imperfect, and situations will continue to escape control. But the one who learns to accept all of this finds a rare kind of peace. A peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, but on consciousness. And it is exactly this consciousness that opens the door to the next step: mastering your own reactions. The second attitude is to master your reactions, not the world. There is a truth that Stoic philosophy echoes across the centuries. The world is not under our control, but our reactions are. It's curious how most people spend their lives trying to change other people's behavior, the weather, traffic, destiny. And in the middle of this useless war, they lose control of themselves. Marcus Aurelius called this human madness, wanting things to happen your way. True self-mastery is not in controlling the world, but in maintaining control over your emotions in the face of it. It's a silent, invisible, yet unshakable power. When chaos arrives, the wise Stoic doesn't react with despair. He observes, understands, breathes, and chooses his response. And it is this choice that changes everything. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens that disturbs a man, but how he interprets what happens." This is one of the deepest Stoic lessons, and at the same time, one of the simplest to apply in daily life. Think of two people facing the same situation. One loses their job and collapses, the other sees the same loss as a chance to restart. The fact is the same, but the reaction is different. And it is this difference that defines the quality of each person's life. Stoicism in practice is exactly this: learning to master the inner world when the outer world escapes control. It's a daily training of mental discipline and serenity, but mastering reactions doesn't mean suppressing emotions. Stoicism is not about becoming a cold stone without feelings. On the contrary, it's about feeling everything, but not being swept away by anything. It's seeing anger and saying, "I see you," but not letting it take the wheel. It's acknowledging fear, but moving forward anyway. It's the art of self-control in its purest form. Seneca called this strength of the soul and said that a man who masters his passions is more powerful than an army. And he was right. Whoever masters their own mind becomes immune to manipulation, offenses, and external storms. This is the kind of power no one can take away. A practical example, imagine a common argument, one in which someone provokes you with irony. The natural impulse is to respond in the same tone, raise your voice, win the debate. But the wise Stoic sees beyond. He understands that reacting impulsively gives power to the other person, so he chooses silence or a calm and firm response. This unsettles any provocateur because serenity disarms more than any argument. This is the exercise of practical philosophy, the daily training of not reacting automatically but consciously. It's the kind of emotional control that changes relationships, careers, and destinies. Stoic philosophy teaches that life is like a mental battlefield. Every day, thousands of small provocations test our balance, a rude comment, an unforeseen event, a loss. Most react with irritation, as if the world should work in their favor. But the Stoic sees each challenge as a training ground. He knows that every provocation is an opportunity to strengthen self-mastery. That's why Stoicism is a philosophy of life. Not an abstract theory. It's a way to live better with resilience and Stoic wisdom applied to every moment. Mastering reactions also means learning to observe your own thoughts. When something happens, the human mind creates stories. This is unfair. This couldn't happen to me. This is a sign of failure. And that's where suffering begins. Stoicism shows that the problem isn't the event, but the narrative you create about it. It's an invitation to interrupt this automatic flow and replace drama with reason. It's looking inward and asking, what depends on me now? This simple question cuts suffering at the root. It's like replacing inner chaos with serenity. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself every day precisely to maintain this focus. His Stoic thoughts acted as reminders of self-mastery. You have power over your mind, not over events. Understand this, and you will find strength. This phrase, so ancient, could appear in a modern behavioral psychology book. Because at its core, Stoicism is this, a practical philosophy of self-awareness and mental discipline. Whoever learns to master their reactions gains something that money, success, and status can never give: inner peace. Mastering reactions is perhaps the most difficult and transformative step of Stoicism. It requires practice, patience, and constant vigilance. But when this ability develops, life changes completely. Nothing can shake someone who governs their emotions wisely. And it is precisely in this state of serenity that the next lesson emerges: the art of practicing indifference to what doesn't matter. The third attitude is to practice indifference to what doesn't matter. One of the most liberating lessons of Stoicism is the art of indifference. And contrary to what it may seem, it has nothing to do with coldness or disinterest. Stoic philosophy teaches that being indifferent is knowing how to choose what deserves your energy, and more importantly, what does not. Seneca said, "He who worries about everything consumes himself for nothing." And that's exactly what we see today. People exhausted, not from overwork, but from giving too much importance to trivial things. Stoic indifference is a form of self-mastery. It's understanding that serenity arises when one learns to separate the essential from the irrelevant. This is one of the greatest demonstrations of mental discipline and emotional control. In practice, this philosophy of life acts almost like a filter of wisdom. Imagine how much time is wasted arguing over opinions on social media, reacting to criticism, comparing oneself to strangers. Marcus Aurelius, if he lived today, would probably turn off his phone often. He would say something like, "Nothing from the outside can affect what is firm within you," and he would be right. Stoic philosophy reminds us that every distraction comes at a cost, and the price is our peace. Learning to be indifferent is, in a way, an act of rebellion against the noisy society. It's choosing silence in the midst of the crowd. Being indifferent to what doesn't matter does not mean being apathetic. It means directing your attention like an archer, with precision. The wise Stoic does not waste energy on what cannot be changed, nor does he get entangled in other people's dramas. He focuses on what depends on him, his actions, his words, his posture. And this is what empowers the mind. The practical philosophy of Stoicism teaches that those who try to please everyone become slaves to everyone. Those who practice indifference become free. Free to think, act, and live authentically. Free to seek virtue instead of validation. A simple example: someone criticizes you unfairly. The common reaction would be to justify yourself, get upset, try to prove something. But the Stoic thinks differently. He understands that other people's opinions are like the wind, constantly changing direction and lacking substance. So he remains steady because his compass is internal. This stance requires self-mastery and serenity, but it builds true emotional resilience. When nothing outside can shake you internally, an unbreakable strength arises. This is the kind of Stoic wisdom that transforms life without lengthy speeches. It's curious how the human brain gets used to noise. News, comparisons, gossip, anxiety, all of this creates a dependency on stimuli that add nothing. Stoic philosophy invites us to do the opposite. Reduce the noise to hear your own mind. That's why many Stoics wrote daily as a way to maintain focus. Marcus Aurelius recorded his Stoic thoughts not for others, but for himself, a constant reminder of what truly mattered. This simple habit is one of the most powerful practices of Stoicism in modern life. Writing down what really matters for yourself and discarding the rest. At its core, indifference is an act of self-love. It's protecting the mind from excess stimuli and unnecessary emotions. It's choosing serenity over confusion. When one masters this art, life becomes lighter, simpler, and deeper. Seneca said, "He is poor who needs much to be happy." Indifference to what doesn't matter is precisely that, needing little because the essential is already within. It's an exercise in virtue and wisdom that transforms the way we react, think, and feel. But achieving this indifference doesn't happen overnight. It's constant training. Every day the world will test you, a provocation, bad news, a comparison that wounds the ego. And in each test, the choice repeats itself: react or remain serene. This training is the heart of Stoicism in practice. Over time, the mind strengthens, small things stop stealing peace, and major problems become more manageable. This is what it means to evolve spiritually, not mystically, but rationally and practically. In the end, indifference to what doesn't matter is the foundation for living with more clarity and less suffering. When you learn to ignore the noise, space opens for what truly matters: growth, self-mastery, and virtue. And it is precisely here that Stoic philosophy shows its value, when serenity stops being a pretty concept and becomes a real experience. Because once you learn not to be shaken by trivialities, you are ready for the next step: turning pain into learning. The fourth attitude is to transform pain into learning. At the heart of Stoicism, one of the most powerful lessons is that pain is not a punishment, but a teacher. Marcus Aurelius wrote that every challenge is an opportunity to exercise mental discipline, resilience, and virtue. Stoic philosophy teaches that inevitable suffering can become fuel for growth. Instead of fighting it or lamenting, the wise person views pain as a training ground. Every frustration, loss, or mistake carries a lesson that can strengthen the mind and character. Turning pain into learning is the essence of the practical philosophy of life that Seneca and Epictetus advocated. Imagine, for example, someone facing a professional failure. The natural instinct is to blame the world, feel anger or sadness. But Stoic philosophy invites reflection. What can I learn from this? How can I grow from this experience? This simple shift in thinking changes how challenges are handled. Instead of succumbing to suffering, the person extracts valuable insights, developing self-mastery and serenity. It is the difference between being a victim of circumstances and being the master of one's own mind. Epictetus emphasized that no external circumstance can harm us if we do not allow it. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. This is the core of emotional control in Stoic philosophy. Every difficulty is an opportunity to train patience, resilience, and mental discipline. For example, someone facing severe criticism can use the moment to evaluate their own actions and adjust behaviors, rather than reacting impulsively. In this way, adversity becomes a tool for self-knowledge and personal growth. The secret lies in realizing that pain has two paths. It can break us or teach us. The choice depends on how we respond. Marcus Aurelius repeated to himself that every obstacle is an invitation to virtue. Every setback is a chance to practice self-control. Seneca added, "Difficulty reveals a man's greatness." The philosophy of life born from this understanding is not theoretical. It is practical, applicable to every aspect of daily life. Even small frustrations can be laboratories for growth if approached with the right Stoic mindset. Turning pain into learning requires courage and honesty with oneself. It's looking at one's own weakness and saying, "Here is an opportunity to evolve." Stoic learning is not limited to abstract moral lessons. It manifests in concrete actions. For example, after a disagreement, the wise person reflects on how they could have reacted better, adjusts future behavior, and applies the lesson in the next interaction. Stoic philosophy thus becomes a tool for continuous improvement, a manual for living better even amidst adversity. The beauty of this process is that it transforms suffering into wisdom. Every painful experience ceases to be a useless burden and becomes part of building a strong and serene mind. It is in this cycle of facing challenges and reflecting that true Stoic thoughts emerge. Insights that shape behavior, strengthen character, and expand understanding of life. Mental discipline grows as one learns to deal with each challenge without losing inner balance. Moreover, turning pain into learning is deeply connected to resilience. It's not about avoiding difficulties, but about developing the ability to rise stronger with each fall. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that life is not about waiting for the storm to pass, but learning to dance in the rain. This is the spirit of Stoicism in practice, seeing every obstacle as an ally, every loss as a lesson, every pain as a silent teacher. And it is precisely this ability that prepares the ground for the next step in Stoic philosophy, training the mind for discomfort. Once a person learns to extract learning from pain, they begin to see that discomfort, which once intimidated, is now just another training ground to develop serenity, self-mastery, and Stoic wisdom. The fifth attitude is to train the mind for discomfort. In Stoicism, there is a principle that many people overlook. The mind must be trained to face discomfort, not just to seek comfort. Marcus Aurelius understood this and wrote about the need to prepare for adversities before they happen. Stoic philosophy teaches that pain and difficulty are inevitable, but the way we respond can be shaped. Training the mind is like strengthening a muscle. It requires repetition, patience, and discipline. Each small exposure to discomfort builds resilience, enhances self-mastery, and reinforces serenity in life. Imagine waking up early on a cold morning to study or work, even when you don't feel like it. This is a classic Stoic practice. Physical and mental discomfort serves as training for the mind. Epictetus said that preparation is half the victory. By becoming accustomed to small challenges, a person develops the ability to face larger problems without being shaken. Discomfort becomes a tool, not an enemy. Every step outside the comfort zone strengthens mental discipline and creates space for Stoic wisdom to flourish. This is how adversity becomes opportunity. But training the mind for discomfort is not limited to physical effort. It also involves learning to handle criticism, frustration, and unexpected situations. For example, instead of getting upset with delays, mistakes, or interruptions, the Stoic observes, breathes, and acts with self-control. This daily practice creates a mental shield that protects serenity. Stoic philosophy shows that a mind trained for discomfort remains calm even when the world around seems chaotic. Seneca called this imperturbability, a hallmark of a truly wise mind. Training the mind also involves visualizing the worst possible scenario, a technique known as premeditatio malorum. Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus used this method to prepare for losses, frustrations, and disappointments. By imagining these moments, the mind is no longer caught off guard when they occur. This practice builds emotional resilience, strengthens self-control, and helps maintain serenity. Those who train this way do not avoid discomfort, but learn to walk with it as an ally. Practical examples are abundant. Waking up early, tackling difficult tasks without procrastination, taking on heavy responsibilities, or having delicate conversations, all of these are mental training exercises. The more exposed to discomfort, the stronger self-mastery becomes. And it is important to remember, this is not gratuitous suffering, but conscious practice. Stoicism in action shows that every small experience of discomfort is a life lesson that shapes character, discipline, and resilience. Stoic philosophy also reminds us that excessive comfort weakens the mind. Those who always avoid discomfort become vulnerable to the smallest adversity. True growth happens when one learns to embrace challenging situations while maintaining serenity and clarity. Constant mental training creates resilience that no external problem can break. Each discomfort faced without fear is a step towards Stoic wisdom and emotional maturity. Training the mind for discomfort is, therefore, a form of freedom. It is realizing that nothing outside oneself has real power over happiness or inner peace. Marcus Aurelius affirmed that the world owes us nothing. It only presents opportunities to test our character. Stoic philosophy teaches that every challenge is a chance to exercise virtue, self-control, and mental discipline. By accepting discomfort as a natural part of life, a person strengthens themselves, finds balance, and learns to live better, regardless of circumstances. And it is precisely this preparation that allows one to move to the next step, eliminating the desire for approval. When the mind is trained for discomfort, it no longer depends on external recognition. True power lies in remaining upright, calm, and virtuous, even when no one is watching, a decisive step in the journey of Stoicism in practice. The sixth attitude is to eliminate the desire for approval. One of life's most subtle traps is the relentless pursuit of approval. Marcus Aurelius warned that other people's opinions only have power over those who grant it. Stoic philosophy teaches that true freedom arises when one stops depending on external validation. It is fascinating how, throughout history, great thinkers like Seneca and Epictetus emphasized the importance of living according to one's own reason and virtue, without being enslaved by praise or criticism. The mental discipline required for this is deep but liberating. Those who eliminate the desire for approval gain serenity, self-mastery, and a rare sense of inner peace. In practice, this Stoic lesson can be applied in small, everyday situations. Imagine posting something important on social media and noticing it doesn't get enough likes. The instinctive reaction would be to feel undervalued. but Stoic philosophy encourages reflection. Did I do this with virtuous intention, or am I seeking approval? When the answer is authentic, detachment comes naturally. Emotional control arises because validation no longer comes from outside, but from within. This mindset strengthens resilience and prepares the mind for more complex situations, where the impact of others' opinions could be devastating. Epictetus spoke about the difference between things that depend on us and things that do not. Other people's opinions clearly do not depend on us, so spending energy trying to please is a waste. On the other hand, what depends on us is our own character, our actions and decisions. Stoic wisdom shows that when we focus on what truly matters, we become less vulnerable to criticism and judgment. This does not mean ignoring constructive feedback. It means distinguishing what genuinely builds our virtue from what only feeds the ego. A practical example. In work meetings, many people focus on pleasing bosses or colleagues, shaping their ideas to gain approval. The Stoic acts differently. He presents his ideas with clarity and integrity, without letting fear of rejection dominate him. He understands that his value does not depend on external acceptance, but on his virtue and mental discipline. This kind of stance, born from the practical philosophy of Stoicism, inspires genuine respect without flattery or condescension. The inner freedom that comes from eliminating the desire for approval is a game changer. Seneca said, "The greatest wealth is the freedom of the spirit," and this freedom begins when the need to be approved is abandoned. It transforms not only how we handle criticism, but also our personal and professional relationships. Self-control, one of the pillars of Stoicism, strengthens as we learn to respond to external opinions with serenity and discernment. Practicing this indifference to others' judgment also requires courage. It is easier to conform, accept labels, and act according to external expectations. But Stoic philosophy teaches that virtue lies in doing what is right, regardless of others' opinions. A mind that does not depend on approval is resilient, wise, and serene. Every social challenge, every unjust criticism, every disagreement becomes a training ground to strengthen self-mastery and mental discipline. Another powerful exercise is to reflect on historical examples of great Stoics. Marcus Aurelius, even as emperor, faced criticism and intrigue, but never let it shake his balance. He maintained focus on virtue, justice, and self-control, not public opinion. Learning to detach from approval is therefore a daily practice, evaluating one's actions, noticing when seeking recognition, and redirecting focus to what truly matters, building Stoic wisdom within oneself. And it is precisely this skill that prepares us for the next step, living in the present without clinging to the past or future. When the mind is freed from the desire for approval, it finds space to enjoy each moment with clarity, serenity, and mental discipline, without distractions that drain energy or undermine virtue. The seventh attitude is to live in the present without being attached to the past or the future. One of the greatest traps of the human mind is living caught between the past and the future. Marcus Aurelius, with his Stoic wisdom, reminded us that life only happens in the now, and that regretting the past or worrying about the future is wasting the present. Stoic philosophy teaches that serenity arises when we focus our energy and attention on what is truly under our control, the current moment. Epictetus reinforced that the past is gone, the future is uncertain, and the only reality we can influence is the present. This practical life philosophy is a constant invitation to live fully and consciously. Living in the present does not mean neglecting responsibilities or avoiding planning for the future. On the contrary, Stoicism teaches acting with mental discipline and wisdom, using time purposefully, but without being dominated by anxiety or regret. For example, when preparing an important presentation, a person can rehearse, study, and plan, but without tormenting themselves over potential mistakes or future judgments. This is the practical application of Stoicism in daily life. Complete focus on the moment while keeping the mind steady and serene. The past, with its pains and mistakes, often holds us like invisible chains. Seneca reminds us that dwelling on what has already happened is useless, for nothing can be changed. Accepting the past is an act of self-mastery, allowing us to learn from previous experiences without being dominated by them. A practical example is reflecting on a financial mistake. Instead of blaming oneself, analyze rationally what went wrong, extract the lesson, and apply it to future decisions. This is the essence of a philosophy that turns pain into growth. The future, in turn, is fertile ground for anxiety. People constantly worry about uncertain outcomes, unrealistic projections, and possibilities that may never occur. Stoicism teaches that the only way to act wisely is to focus on the present, doing the best we can today. Marcus Aurelius said that each day brings its own responsibilities and challenges. Anticipating problems only creates suffering. The mental discipline here is practical. Concentrate on what can be done now, cultivating virtue, self-control, and serenity. Living in the present also means valuing each moment. Small moments, seemingly insignificant, carry opportunities for learning and growth. A conversation with a friend, reading, exercise, or meditation can become powerful Stoic practices if performed with full attention. Epictetus emphasized that happiness does not depend on external circumstances, but on how the mind handles each moment. Stoic philosophy, when applied, makes life richer and more meaningful, regardless of difficulties. A common challenge is that the mind tends to wander. Thoughts about past mistakes or future expectations arise automatically. The Stoic exercise is to bring awareness back to the present. A simple practice is to focus on the breath, observe what is happening around, or concentrate fully on the task at hand. These small daily exercises strengthen mental discipline, develop self-control, and consolidate serenity, creating space for Stoic wisdom to flourish in everyday life. Moreover, living in the present is an opportunity to apply virtue practically. Every action, word, and decision becomes meaningful when lived with attention and integrity. Seneca stated that a well-lived life is one dedicated to practicing what is just, right, and virtuous. By focusing on the now, it is possible to act with clarity without being dragged by regrets or fears. This is the central point of Stoicism in practice, transforming each moment into an opportunity for growth and self-awareness. By learning to live fully in the present, the path opens to the next Stoic teaching, reflecting daily on death, memento mori. When the mind lets go of past and future, it becomes aware of life's finitude and begins to value each moment, each opportunity to practice virtue, self-mastery, and mental discipline, consolidating Stoic wisdom in a concrete and profound way. The eighth attitude is to reflect daily on death, memento mori. Stoicism constantly reminds us of life's finitude. Marcus Aurelius, in his writings, urges us to reflect on death, not as a cause for fear, but as an opportunity to live better. Memento mori, remember that you will die, is an invitation to practice self-mastery, mental discipline, and virtue every day. When we accept the inevitability of death, a rare clarity emerges. Priorities align, trivialities lose value, and every moment is lived with full attention. This is one of the most powerful and transformative lessons of Stoicism. Consider this. How often do we waste time on insignificant worries, anxieties over things that will never happen, or useless conflicts? Epictetus emphasized that awareness of death strengthens the mind, preparing it to act with serenity and Stoic wisdom. Knowing that life is short invites us to focus on what truly matters: virtue, resilience, and self-control. Every decision becomes more meaningful when we remember that time is limited and irreversible. This practice is not morbid but liberating. Seneca, in his letters, reminded us that death should not be feared, for it is natural and inevitable. Instead of clinging to an uncertain future or a lost past, Stoic philosophy proposes using this awareness to live intensely in the present. Each morning can be seen as a precious gift, each challenge as an opportunity to exercise mental discipline, and each interaction as a chance to practice virtue. Constant reflection on death gives life meaning. In practice, memento mori can be simple. A Stoic exercise is to dedicate a few minutes each day to reflect on life's finitude. Imagine that this could be the last day to act with courage, patience, and kindness. This technique strengthens resilience, transforms perspectives, and develops self-control. What once seemed trivial, irritation, delay, criticism, loses power in the face of life's finite reality. Stoicism in practice proves once again to be a useful and deeply transformative life philosophy. Another important point is that awareness of death helps prioritize actions and relationships. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded that life is short and should not be wasted on grudges or resentment. Those who practice memento mori learn to value what is truly important: Stoic wisdom, virtue, serenity, and genuine connection with others. This constant reflection shapes the mind for discipline, self-control, and clarity of purpose. Daily reflection on death also intensifies focus on personal growth. Every obstacle and every suffering is seen as part of learning. Stoic philosophy teaches that nothing is lost. Every experience has the potential to strengthen character. Pain, loss, and fear of uncertainty become tools for development, transforming difficult moments into opportunities for self-mastery and resilience. Moreover, this practice reminds us of the importance of living with integrity. When aware of life's finitude, it becomes natural to act according to principles, not out of fear of judgment or desire for approval, but from conviction. Seneca and Epictetus emphasize that true human value lies in virtue and wisdom, not in external achievements or others' opinions. Applied this way, Stoicism teaches us to act with courage, mental discipline, and serenity every day. By internalizing the concept of memento mori, the mind is prepared for the next step, cultivating virtue above pleasure. By realizing that life is finite, a person begins to value what truly builds character, strengthens self-control, and deepens Stoic wisdom, instead of being lost in fleeting gratifications and trivial distractions. The ninth attitude is to cultivate virtue above pleasure. At the core of Stoicism is the idea that true happiness comes not from pleasure, but from virtue. Marcus Aurelius and Seneca emphasized that the relentless pursuit of immediate gratification is deceptive and leads to suffering. Stoic philosophy teaches that the development of character, mental discipline, and self-control forms the foundation of a fulfilling life. Epictetus said that the wise person values integrity, justice, and courage above any fleeting pleasure. Cultivating virtue, therefore, is a way to strengthen the mind, achieve serenity, and build resilience. In practice, cultivating virtue means making conscious choices that reflect ethical and moral principles, even when these choices are less comfortable or enjoyable. For example, someone might resist the temptation to deceive or manipulate for personal gain, even if it brings momentary pleasure. These decisions strengthen mental discipline and self-mastery. Stoic philosophy reminds us that every action guided by virtue builds an unbeatable mind, while the unrestrained pursuit of pleasure only creates anxiety and dissatisfaction. Virtue also appears in small daily actions. Helping a colleague without expecting recognition, being patient with family, controlling anger in irritating situations, all these are exercises in self-control and Stoic wisdom. Marcus Aurelius emphasized that greatness lies not in words, but in consistent actions. Thus, Stoicism in practice transforms daily life into a laboratory for discipline, resilience, and inner growth. Cultivating virtue requires constant reflection. Epictetus suggested reviewing one's actions daily, asking, "Did I act according to reason and my principles?" This simple practice is powerful. It strengthens awareness, helps identify patterns that compromise serenity, and reinforces emotional control. Each day becomes an opportunity to exercise self-mastery and live according to Stoic philosophy, fortifying the mind against impulses and distractions. A practical example. In the digital age, we are constantly tempted by immediate pleasures, social media, compulsive entertainment, impulsive shopping. Stoicism teaches resisting these stimuli and prioritizing activities that develop virtue, discipline, and wisdom. Reading classical books, studying Stoic philosophy, reflecting on decisions, or practicing physical exercise are ways to replace fleeting pleasure with lasting growth. Every conscious choice strengthens the mind and promotes resilience. Seneca reminded us that virtue alone is enough for happiness. When the mind clings to pleasure, it becomes a slave to what is external, volatile, and uncertain. By valuing virtue, one finds independence and inner freedom. Stoic philosophy shows that pleasure can be a bonus, but never the main goal. Serenity, self-mastery, and Stoic wisdom arise from consistently cultivating virtue in all actions. Moreover, cultivating virtue above pleasure creates emotional stability. No external circumstance can shake a mind firmly rooted in principles. Marcus Aurelius highlighted that it is better to suffer for what is right than to rejoice in injustice or temporary indulgence. This perspective provides courage, mental discipline, and clarity, strengthening resilience in the face of any adversity. And it is precisely this strength that prepares the person for the final step, facing every adversity as a test of their wisdom. By cultivating virtue above pleasure, each challenge ceases to be merely an obstacle and becomes an opportunity to exercise self-mastery, apply Stoic lessons, and deepen inner wisdom, building a mind shielded from suffering. The 10th attitude is to face each adversity as a test of your wisdom. Stoic philosophy reminds us that life is essentially a series of challenges and tests. Marcus Aurelius wrote that every obstacle is an opportunity to exercise virtue, self-control, and mental discipline. Seneca affirmed that true character is revealed in adversity. Stoicism teaches us to approach every difficulty not as punishment, but as a test of wisdom, a chance to strengthen the mind, practice resilience, and cultivate serenity. Each setback is, therefore, an invitation to grow and apply the principles that structure a life of self-mastery. In practice, facing adversity as a test means approaching problems and frustrations with curiosity and rationality. For instance, a professional project that fails may generate frustration, but also offers valuable lessons on planning, discipline, and decision-making. Instead of reacting emotionally, the wise Stoic analyzes, learns, and adjusts their behavior. Practical Stoicism shows that every challenge carries the seed of growth, transforming suffering into an opportunity for self-development. Epictetus taught that external circumstances are neutral. It is our interpretation that determines suffering or learning. Thus, every adversity is an exercise in self-mastery. A family conflict, financial crisis, or illness need not dominate the mind. They can serve as training grounds for patience, courage, and resilience. Mental discipline and emotional control are strengthened whenever Stoic philosophy is applied to face difficulties, turning challenges into opportunities for growth. Moreover, treating adversities as tests of wisdom helps develop a broader perspective on life. Marcus Aurelius reflected that nothing that happens is purely negative. Everything is part of the natural order and offers lessons. This perspective turns frustration into acceptance and pain into practical discipline. Every difficulty, no matter how harsh, becomes a tool for improvement, strengthening the mind and consolidating the Stoic wisdom that shields against suffering. A practical example is managing criticism at work or in personal life. Receiving harsh feedback may trigger anger or insecurity, but the Stoic sees this as a test of patience and self-control. They evaluate what is useful and discard what is irrelevant, turning the situation into learning. Stoicism in practice is clear. Adversities are not enemies, but silent teachers that reveal inner strength and improve mental discipline. Resilience is built with each challenge faced consciously. Seneca emphasized that greatness is defined not by the absence of problems, but by the ability to maintain serenity, self-control, and virtue in the face of them. This approach fortifies the mind against suffering, making any difficulty less intimidating. Every adversity experienced with awareness becomes a step toward a fuller life, aligned with Stoic principles. Furthermore, facing adversity as a test teaches us not to seek constant comfort. Marcus Aurelius repeated that life is turbulent, and inner peace depends on preparing the mind for these moments. Stoicism teaches that suffering is not only inevitable, but necessary for growth. Every difficulty faced with mental discipline and self-mastery is an opportunity to practice virtue and reinforce serenity, embedding Stoic wisdom into everyday life. Thus, every adversity ceases to be a threat and becomes part of the journey of personal evolution. A mind that treats challenges as tests learns to turn obstacles into opportunities, pain into learning, and frustration into growth. In this constant cycle of practice and reflection, the 10 topics come full circle. Accept what cannot be controlled, master reactions, practice indifference, turn pain into learning, train for discomfort, eliminate the need for approval, live in the present, reflect on death, cultivate virtue, and finally, face every adversity as a test of one's own wisdom. Now that you've discovered these 10 Stoic attitudes, the question is, will you actually apply them in your life, or will you keep reacting to circumstances as you always have? Each lesson we explored here, from accepting what you cannot control to facing every adversity as a test of your wisdom, is a powerful tool to transform your mind and shield your life against suffering. But knowing these lessons isn't enough. True power lies in practice. Imagine facing criticism, loss, or frustration with serenity and self-mastery, without being swept away by emotions or the opinions of others. Imagine living each day in the present, with virtue, courage, and resilience, seizing every opportunity for growth. The Stoic philosophy offers exactly this, but it only works if you're willing to apply it in your daily routine, decisions, and relationships. The question is, are you ready to take on this responsibility and truly evolve? Try today to implement a small Stoic habit. Reflect on a challenge you're facing and ask yourself how you could act with more virtue and mental discipline. Or practice conscious indifference towards something that normally upsets you. Every step, no matter how small, is a stair toward building a shielded, serene, and wise mind. And if these lessons resonated with you, why not continue this journey? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos on applying Stoicism in practice, turning Stoic thinking into daily habits, and living more wisely, disciplined, and resiliently. Remember, Change begins with small daily actions, and each Stoic attitude you adopt today can shape your tomorrow. Now I want to know, which of these attitudes will you start applying today? Which one will transform how you handle life? Comment below, share your experiences, and let's build together a community of people striving to live better, with more virtue, self-control, and Stoic wisdom. The path is not easy, but it is infinitely rewarding.